All right. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody. This is the Gray Market AMA with special guest MDB. We have some friends from our $1 Million Baby friends over there. Today we have the Godfather and Apex Alpha with us. My bad. So before we get started, Godfather, why don't you tell us about yourself, what you do, and tell us, give us a recap, because we are familiar with $1 Million Baby here, but tell us about yourself, tell us about the project, what you do, etc., etc.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've kind of transitioned a bit, really. So, $1 Million Baby is the first token in the MDB ecosystem, which is Make DeFi Better. Just to reposition that. For anybody that's new to MDB, I suppose about me and my background, this is full time. This isn't a part-time gig for me. I've given up my career to come and set up and run this project. My background, I suppose, across both startup investment and then also many years in sort of larger businesses. So I've worked in several Fortune 500 businesses in leadership roles, typically within the technology space. And then I spent later years in my career working in technology startups, scaling up to sort of financial exits and through investment rounds. I've been in crypto for a couple of years. Had some success, like most people, you go through that learning curve. Obviously, if I think about my first few months in crypto, it's, you'd almost laugh at yourself, but that's kind of where you learn the most. And really, Make DeFi Better in MDB, where it really comes from is, it's a product of studying the market and watching what typically happens, right? In 99% of projects is probably an understatement that if you include all projects, most of them start and fail relatively quickly, and even many good ones also are doomed to failure, and there's a number of fundamental reasons behind that, and quite often it's the team and things like that, but there are massive fundamentals in terms of things like whale dominance, the way AMMs work, the risk within the industry because of the lack of regulation. So really, I set up this project because I wanted to build a financial ecosystem that ultimately was efficient. It had all of the good of DeFi, so it could present all of the opportunity, great community, very efficient on the ground, so therefore gave people the opportunity to make money rather than an institution, and to try and just offer a little bit of good in an industry where it can be very challenging for the investor quite a lot of the time.
Very nice, very nice. Apex Alpha, if you would also like to introduce yourself.
Sure thing. Well, I'm Apex Alpha. I'm sure we'll come on to this a bit later on, but I kind of head up the Millionaires Club, which is kind of an exclusive club, really just rewarding loyalty. So I kind of assist the team, try to kind of, be a bit innovative around some of the ideas and concepts and help in, kind of chime in where I can. I'm not part of the core team. The core team do an absolutely fabulous job with the community. I just help out where I can and kind of try to be a kind of a focal point for the Millionaires Club.
Okay, yeah, the Millionaires Club. That I remember. I remember a lot of us in here were very interested in getting into that when we were first getting into your guys' protocol. So for anyone here coming in from MDB, my name is Meta. I'm community manager here at the Gray Markets. We are a VC group focused on alpha. We're focused on everything crypto, TradeFi, NFTs, basically having specialists in every sort of facet of this digital space, mostly to help you make money, help you learn the space that is crypto, the wild west of cryptocurrency. And we understand here that you guys have something pretty important coming up for your project, because a lot of us have been in since day one, but you guys haven't really stopped moving since since day one. So why don't you tell us about this this project Xenia?
Yeah, so we've already launched the first step actually. So and you're absolutely right. When we kind of look at everything that we've got coming, we almost don't have enough days in the calendar actually for the amount of things that we're working on and building. But Xenia, Xenia is a Greek god, and it's it's the Greek god of giving, and Xenia really is our landing page and financial platform, and then DApp. The way the Make DeFi Better ecosystem is designed to be is that MDB is like the master token, if you like, and then everything else offers a different flavor of investment opportunity to the individual that's buying it, and Xenia really will be the landing page, and also where you can interact and get information, understand what TVL looks like, maybe in the stable backed asset. You can farm your tokens or farm in our liquidity pool. You can buy other assets. You can look at the status of your own investments as well, and obviously buy and sell all of the assets that we have. So Xenia really is the platform that will give that sort of broader view, because we've developed beyond we'll have a couple of tokens when Infinity, which is kind of the final piece in the whole jigsaw, comes. Really depends on the market conditions, and it's not like we don't have enough to do in the meantime, but we'll have tokens, stable backed assets, of which MDB Plus, we've already got the first stable backed asset out, and it's I think it's grown something like 5% in its first month. We've got another stable backed asset that's going to be launching within the next couple of weeks, which does have some risk exposure within it, but there's also a bit of gamification, but the upside also will be much sharper than MDB Plus, and that's sort of the pros and cons of any investment. And then obviously we'll have farming. We've got our first mint of NFTs, which launches next, or 10 days from now actually, so on the 29th of June. So that's an exclusive set of NFTs, only 500, so Xenia really will be sort of the place where all of this is hosted. So you land on our website, and you're immediately hit with information, stats, data, and you can engage with those assets and buy and sell.
Okay, all right. You guys certainly are busy. Now you mentioned that there are a lot of components to your space, to your whole protocol here. How are each of those doing? I mean, this market is complete crap. I don't want to mince words here. We're going down. So how is each of your, I guess, aspects of your protocol performing? At your trust fund, your stable backed coins, your own coin. How do you see each of these things performing in a market that is bound to get worse?
Yeah, and sorry, when you say it's bound to get worse, is it? Are you? I'm always curious. Why are you absolutely dead set that it will get significantly worse?
Well, we're still seeing a lot of downfall in the stock market, and as you know, when stock markets go down, crypto goes down. It's completely unavoidable. So we're like it. We might have seen a local bottom. I don't personally believe we have seen the bottom, the capital T bottom. So like how well, like what safeguards are you having to ensure that investors are safe should, again, don't want to be pessimistic, should things get worse? I won't pretend like I have the crystal ball in front of me, but should things get worse, how are you guys going to be performing? How are you guys going to keep up?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I suppose we've already taken a number of moves. So some weeks ago, so MDB Plus was always designed to be a complementary asset, so you could move in and out of our speculative assets and hold all of your stable tokens in something that appreciates in value and cannot depreciate. That was its original intention. Now, obviously, because of what happened in the market, it created this. It was a silver lining in very difficult difficult circumstances that we kind of had this ready to go almost. So one of the first things that we did is that we hedged our LP. So we moved 40% of our LP across to MDB Plus when BNB was somewhere in the region of about 320. The second thing that we did was that we moved a significant portion of assets within the trust fund across to stable backed assets. Now we did take a move based on some advice that we do work with advisors, and we have a process that we go through, and we took a move to move some of that out of the stables at a terrible time. Actually, it's very easy to look back at the charts, and we moved into an ETH backed asset, or an ETH pegged asset with EMP, and we also purchased ETH within that move, and we opened up our exposure a bit to BNB. So we felt some downward pressure. However, when we look across our portfolio, it's still, whilst we accepted a little bit more risk because of some of the advice that we received, we at the same time have kept it to pretty, in terms of the level of investments we've made. Our exposure mainly is in BNB, ETH, and then we're using two sort of well-known, broadly accepted and high volume farms in Pancake and BuySwap, and we're also farming the ETH as well in an auto vault. So we've got some exposure there. I suppose there's a third element to that. So one is that we're hedging on stable assets. Second is that we've hedged 40% of our LP on MDB Plus, which is always appreciating. That is huge because MDB Plus is about to be adopted by other projects as well, so they'll also be hedging their LP and creating secondary LPs on MDB Plus, which is going to drive a huge amount of volume. So that'll have a really big impact. And then the third thing I suppose that we've got in our locker is in terms of, because we've got a business background. Actually, we're used to doing things like contingency planning. I've been second in command in a startup going through COVID. I've been through global recessions in large organizations who've had to go through significant restructures. So I'm used to these type of things. So we've set out pretty strict contingency plans, and we have this almost doomsday scenario actually, where as a protocol we can basically operate forever. If we really absolutely had to, we believe that we could operate on less than 2K a month if we needed to.
2K a month. Wow, that definitely would be doomsday scenario there. So what stable assets are you backed by?
So MDB Plus is 100% backed by BUSD plus $1 at all times, and that's actually held within the contract. So there's no algorithmic or anything like that going on in the background. So that's completely backed. We did have an exposure of about $300,000 to USDT, which was moved when Terra Luna was kicking off. Our other stable backed assets, I think it's all BUSD actually. I think in terms of stable.
All right, good choice. Yeah, was doing the algo stable check there, but okay, because it's not doing too well. We're seeing a lot of stables depegging, et cetera, et cetera. So good to know you guys are solid there.
Sorry, just to add to your last question, if you don't mind, because you asked about how would we get through this scenario. One of the initiatives that this project was built on was that it would be sustainable, right? So we didn't design something. We always talked about worst case scenarios. We've always modeled the worst things happening, and we're completely prepared for that. And in doing that also, as a team, we didn't take any funds raised out of the protocol to cover any startup costs, and we keep running costs pretty lean, and we also are doing this because we want to do it, because it's not for a quick buck or get rich quick sort of scheme like many projects clearly are. So we can also basically run the project without expecting any income from it for a pretty long period of time. So as a group of people that lead the project, really we're here for all of the right reasons. So we're very safe for that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I I guess my question is, we have seen countless amounts of DeFi protocols come and go. A lot of them are trying to promise the same thing. In this market, it's everybody's looking for a cash. All these devs looking for a cash grab, exit liquidity, what have you. So, I guess my question is, why should potential new investors trust you? Like, why you guys over the other, any just throw out a project dev and just like et cetera, why you?
Yeah.
Why should we be trusting you with this? Because you guys are running a trust fund, you guys are running your own, you're going to be running your own stable backed coins, et cetera. Why should investors trust you to be able to fulfill all these obligations?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I think, the most trust is always going to come from seeing the proof in the pudding and the way an organisation operates. I think if you just look at the profile of us as a team, and now clearly, we haven't docs yet, and I do have a plan to docs, and then, be very clear that my experience is what I say it is, and, people will be able to join the dots and understand sort of that I didn't roll out of school yesterday. But, from the words of, from my own sort of mouth, the typical profile of a team that runs a crypto project is typically very young. They haven't handled cash before. They haven't been in a position of responsibility. And dare I say, any of us at that point in our life, harbour a certain level of immaturity. And, if you look at us, if you even just take the business background aside, also we're at a point in our lives where we're not financially dependent on this project, and ultimately that puts us in a position where our intentions are focused in the right area instantly. We're not multimillionaires by any stretch of the imagination, but at the same time, we wouldn't want our own sort of financial situation to be to ultimately be a threat to a project where you're taking investment from other people. So we've made sure that isn't the case. In addition to that, maturity is really important. So I'm at the wrong end of my 30s, have children. All of the core team have children or children on the way, and when I live my years again, and I'm in my mid 70s, right? And I feel like life has just been the click of your fingers, and I think without being too corny, when you've brought children into the world and you've got families and you've kind of probably got nearly halfway through your life already, or the best part of it, then if you see $1 million in front of you, you think, so what? Okay, you see responsibility rather than something that's just going to make you get a little bit excited and potentially do the wrong thing or be greedy in the wrong moment. And I think that's probably our biggest sort of standout as a team versus other projects. So that means that when things are difficult, like now, we don't think, okay, well, we're just here for the dream, so we don't want to do this anymore. We think, okay, well, this is just a process. You go through the difficult times, you learn, you build, you're critical of each other, and you'll come out the other side and you'll be in a better place for it. And I think you only have that with life experience and maturity, and when you can see the bigger picture and you're not blinded by a few zeros on a piece of paper. So I'd say that's probably the single biggest thing. If you look at the way we've managed the protocol as well, it would be there's been ample opportunity over the last few weeks for us to get way overexcited and to use the fund to just we could just ×4 right at the click of our fingers, and it'd look fantastic and we'd be a top gainer on CMC, and it'd make us feel good for a couple of days. But we don't know what's coming in the next 48 hours in a market like this. So there's only so many times you can do that. And if you look at the way we've managed the protocol, we actually quite often, and we're in this phase at the moment, in the next 10 days, there will be more capital being pumped into the core token from the trust fund, and that's because we've got the NFT that's coming up, and we need to have a certain amount of supply to go into that. And then we've got another partnership that's coming around the corner that will require us to acquire more of the precious depreciating supply, which will also be bringing in substantial income. So actually, our phase plan over the next sort of 10 weeks will see our trust fund substantially increasing. For us to run the projects that we've got lined up, we need to be acquiring supply, because there's a bit of a loop effect in all the projects that we've got. So you're going to be seeing significant investment at the same time as us actually improving our ratio of trust fund to liquidity pool. So I'd say in this market there's probably not many projects that can put their finger on the reason why they're gonna see liquidity injections in the region of sort of $200,000 to $500,000 at a time over the next 3 to 6 months.
Wow. All right. Yeah, you've definitely covered your bases there. Love to see that kind of energy. So I'm going to move on to some questions that we have pulled from our community here. So first off, what is the quantitative performance of the trust fund thus far?
Yeah, so the trust fund, I suppose there's probably 3 phases of performance of the trust fund, and obviously you peg performance of the trust fund versus the market. So we started off with the trust fund of 1.5 million. I've just received our daily report. It's just over 1.1 million as of this point in time. I suppose the first phase of the trust fund, we made a number of investments that were ultimately heavily weighted towards gaining as exposure and with less concern about how much it would make us, right? And people could probably join the dots and work out which investments those were. And then the second phase of our investments were about getting some of that trust fund into relatively safe investments. So you saw us invest in farms that were backed by BNB. The largest investment we made actually was in a USDT BUSD farm, and they were very safe places. While we have a strict process of going through reviewing what we do next. Now the whole Terra Luna thing started to kick in at that point, so we took our exposure away from USDT and we went with an extremely safe position. So at that point, our trust fund was hugely overachieving the market, because the market was having a really tough time and we weren't making a lot of interest, but at the same time we weren't losing money. So that's probably our strongest performance was during that middle phase. And then around 10 days ago, we then shifted several $100,000 out of the stable backed investment, and we accepted more exposure in BNB and Ethereum. And everyone knows what's happened since then. Ethereum has seen a drop in the region of about 60% since then, and BNB has seen a drop in the region of maybe not so much, maybe about 40% if you look at today. So we've felt some exposure there. So I think if we're self-critical, we feel like you always look back in time, and we work with some advisors, and you say, well, if we just waited 3 more days to do that. But at the same time, we're always flanked by the fact that we do need to generate interest for our protocol. Yeah, we can't just leave it in stable and go, there you go, we can never die, because we'll never thrive either. So it's a very difficult balancing act. So we've outperformed the market, that's without a fact. But at the same time, I think we could have performed a bit better. But we do have, a number of moves that are going to see sort of those ratios improve from this point onwards.
All right. So you brought up BNB, which definitely has taken a bit of a tumble since your guys' protocol launch. With that being said, has the team considered changing the liquidity pool fully to a stable or MDB plus, considering BNB is probably going to keep going down?
Well, it's 40% at the moment. So all of the advice we receive is that we've probably seen most of the fall. Our advisors don't see it losing another 50% plus, and certainly for nothing more than just an extreme shock. And that's the advice that we've received. So I think it's very easy to. One thing that we never want to do with the trust fund is get sucked into gambling and trading. And Yeah, so the reason you hedge, right, is because you balance the risk, and we've taken that hedge, and at the moment we're fairly comfortable with it.
All right.
Look, I'll be completely open. Every time BNB drops, we're answering this question. Every time BNB pumps, no one's asking that question, and it's very easy to say, move it to stable. But who makes the call when you move off of stable? Because we haven't tracked the drop in the market, and that's because we made that move. Now, we made that move 3 weeks before anybody turned up saying you should move everything to stable, right? Now, there'll always be someone, I'm sure, like Hazy, who say, I said it from the start. That's fine. But it's a very difficult call to make, and you could easily scalp yourself. You could easily just be going, I sell low, buy high, sell low, buy high, and you're basically just eroding your LP with every move. So you've got to be very careful. Almost over trading is as you will know, over trading is a huge risk.
So do you know off the top of your head where the data is that says that BNB isn't? I don't want to keep beating this horse, but where's the data that says that BNB couldn't fall further, or is that something that your advisors is that only your advisors have the information on?
Yeah, I didn't say it couldn't fall further. I said that when you look at the position of anything, you look at what's the potential downside and what's the potential upside, and there's a fundamental difference between somebody who sits there watching a 5-minute chart and is ready to move an LP backwards and forwards with a high degree of frequency, and taking a longer term position, right? So we're definitely more of the approach of taking a longer term position, and from a longer term perspective, the advice that we're receiving is at this position, the probability of going below 100 is much less than going above, say, 350.
Okay.
In the medium term. Now, next week you might see this sharp drop, and then you might, we saw Terra Luna, it touched 220, and within 8 days it was at 330. You could have had a 50% gain there. So I think it's very easy to look back at a chart and show where you would have made money.
Okay. So with that in mind, should we be in an extended bear for the foreseeable future? What kind of runway are we looking at for your project? I know it's really hard to give exact numbers, but like an estimate of what kind of runway you think you could get away with should we be stuck in these kinds of market conditions?
Infinite. We've designed the project to be extremely sustainable. It has a very low cost base. It's very efficient in terms of the way we use capital. We always punch above our weight in terms of exposure, if I'm completely honest, versus the way other people use their capital. And if there was a bear market for 2 years, then we can do that. It's not an issue. It's not even worth, and I come from a world where I'm used to calculating run rates and looking at hard endings in 9 months. There is no hard ending for MDB. I can assure you that.
Okay. Let's see, what else do we have here? Who manages the trust fund? We understand that you have an external team that runs it, but how did you pick them, and what's their experience?
Yeah, so we use some advisors, and we then have a process that we go through. So we don't make any knee-jerk reactions. We assess things. We then go through a review process. We look at both the trust fund, and then as a team, we also then look at what partnership or potential exposure we can get from that. So we always look at maybe how we can leverage other things as well as the investment in itself. And then we've got some advisors who, we don't give them the fund, but they offer us advice. And quite frankly, they've given us very, very safe advice to date. They've kind of said, okay, yeah, well, if you're going to put it into farms, only put it in these types of farms, and these are pretty safe. And they've advised in this market, if you are going to open up to any exposure, then make sure you retain a good portion in stables at all times, and only expose yourself to things like Ethereum, Bitcoin, BNB.
All right. So I guess it's a bit of a subjective question. Are you guys happy with your performance so far?
Are we happy with our performance? I think look, there's always you'll never get a we're 9 out of 10 answer on that with me, because I'm very self-critical. The team have done a fantastic job. They've absolutely crushed it. The pace that we move at, we've always moved ahead of schedule. Even we launched 2 weeks early, which in itself, looking back now, was absolutely huge, because we were 2 weeks before, obviously, some real pain within the industry. So that gave us at least a little bit of time to bed in. We had a couple of operational issues at launch, which weren't ideal. But yeah, if you look at how we've performed versus most protocols, then I would say that we've certainly, any protocol that is new, any protocol that has launched within the last 3 months, I would say that we're outperforming 9 out of 10. So, but being internally critical, I would give us between a 7 and 8 out of 10, because there's always a learning curve that you're on.
That's fair. I understand being self-critical, so I think that's a good mindset to have. So I think that's all I have written down here in terms of questions that we had prepared. So
I would just just thinking back to one of your recent questions as well, because I know there's this is exactly the type of investment group that we want to be talking to. And just in terms of the trust fund, I think one thing that's easily missed when people do the assessment, so I think our trust fund number today is just over 1.1 million. We started at 1.5. The Phoenix has injected well north of $250,000 in the last 7 weeks in there. So when you look at sort of market depreciation, and you look at where we are today, and you look at we've actually removed 7.4% of supply today, and we also have a significant portion of supply sort of kept aside for 2 of the major projects that we've got coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I just wanted to, because I think it's very easy to forget sort of the capital injections that have been made as well into the protocol when we do that crude assessment. But if we hadn't made those capital injections, then actually, we'd probably be looking at about a minus 9% figure.
Okay, we have one more in here. I think we've already brought over this, but for, I guess, any new people, what's worst case scenario? Well, what is your specific worst case scenario, Godfather?
What's our worst case scenario? Our worst case scenario. Oh, it's a good question. It's actually, and I think with our worst case scenario that we mapped actually when we launched the protocol was seeing the price go times 100 very quickly, and the reason we saw that as the worst case scenario is because then actually there would be a huge delta between, whilst you'd be collecting taxes on the way up, the only way that you could start to close the delta between the trust fund and the size of market cap, i.e. the amount that's sat in people's wallets that you need to support, would be by seeing an absolutely huge sell-off. Now, seen as the way AMMs work and people get excited, invest at the very end, then for us, if you'd gone times 100 and then you went back to times 10, it means that, that's minus 90%, for some people. So for us, whilst most people go into a project wanting to see it times 100 in a week, we mapped the worst case scenario would be for us for that to happen. What we'd like to see is times 100 in a sustainable way. The way the protocol is designed, actually, it's a huge sell-off is actually very positive for the protocol, because it means that we can accumulate a large amount of supply, taking it out of circulation forever and burning it, and then improving the share of the protocol for everybody else that is left. So the worst case scenario is a market that has no volume, and you just sit somewhere in the middle of the two with very little price movement and very little volume, and that's nowhere near a worst case scenario for most protocols, but for us it would be being stuck in the middle would be but then at the same time our investments would be generating in interest, and it would just mean that the process would take longer. Volatility, as long as it's within a certain degree, we don't want people to get hurt. Volatility speeds up that the process of the protocol.
Okay. That's definitely an answer I wasn't expecting, but hey, you know, this is crypto, baby. So
what would you normally get? The worst case scenario is that everybody sells.
Oh yeah, you know, that's it's DeFi. That's basically well, worst case scenario is everybody sells, and then the owners decide to politely rug or just quit. You know, I'm sure we've all seen that happen at least once, twice, or 12 times. That's not
an option. That's not an option. The latter is definitely not an option for us. And actually, our community members that are here in the chat right now, I'm sure they go to bed at night and they pray to wake up in the morning and there's been a 90% sell-off, because they would immediately own a much larger chunk of the portfolio, and that's the way the protocol's designed.
Yeah, you know what? I think another key metric as well, specifically for maybe one that's not mentioned a lot of times, but if you're looking at kind of project performance, for me anyway, at least the key indicator is the community, and it's like I think probably the best we've done in terms of numbers is in terms of Discord anyway. It's something like 12,800 at its peak. And it's about maybe 12,200 at its lowest. I think we're bobbling around maybe 12,400 at the moment. But it's one thing that always kind of strikes me is, you without thinking about Ponzonomics and having to get new investors in, you have to make sure your current investors, the people who've already invested, are not just trying to sell and move on for any reason. And that for me is one of the really good things we've done within the project that's retained a lot of loyalty. Let's be frank, a lot of loyalty around the project. And when you add in things like the Millionaires Club and all the kind of stuff we do around giveaways and the Phoenix Games. I'm not sure if you've mentioned too much about the Phoenix Games right now, but all of these kind of things add to the kind of the kind of allure to keep people kind of believing in the project moving forward.
Yeah, there's a few things. Yeah, the Millionaires Club provides life regardless of what's going on outside, actually, within our community. Also Gravity, we've just had our second Gravity project, a very small project actually, but still an opportunity to help a project that's reached the end of its life, where we set up a compensation scheme for its holders, and if there's an opportunity to acquire some liquidity in that process, then obviously we do that, but really it's a philanthropic sort of venture that brings grows the community and brings more people together. So there are actually mechanisms within our protocol that work no matter how bad it is, and they work if things are good, obviously everybody's happy, but if things are really bad, then we've got mechanisms within the protocol like community, also the Gravity project, and just the way the protocol's designed in itself provides sustainability.
All right. Anyway, we've been here a little while, so we can wrap this up here. We got a lot of good information out of our friends over at MDB. Just a quick recap. Godfather and Apex, if you guys want to do a quick little TLDR of your guys' positions, remind everybody new and remind our audience on YouTube who you guys are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm. By the way, the name The Godfather was the result of a community vote. So it's not a reflection of how I see myself. But yeah, I'm, I suppose, the leader of the project, and I don't know. Do you want me to do a summary of the project again, or
Yeah, just a short, elevator pitch, or elevator recap of what you guys, of yourselves and your project.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So look, myself, I'm the leader of the project. I'd rather spend more time talking about the project, but I'm from a business background. I've worked in investment circles and mature at the mature end, probably an old guy in terms of crypto at the wrong end of my 30s. Really set up this project. I suppose it's an ambition to try and build something within the DeFi space that's responsible, sustainable, and very, very, very difficult to be broken actually by any other actors. And the project really, so Make DeFi Better is an ecosystem. The master token is MDB, but it's an ecosystem that goes beyond that of stable backed assets. We've already launched the first one. We've got another one on the way. We have an NFT which will deliver lifetime rewards in MDB, which launches on the 29th of April. We have our mint of 500 NFTs, so very exclusive. And we also have farming, staking, bonds, and in addition to that, we'll also have there's another secret project longer term called Infinity, which will be like this degen platform, if you like, that all sits within the Make DeFi Better ecosystem. There's a range of risk and reward profiles. Even with us, the level of risk at the highest is relatively low, but the opportunity is still pretty high. And then there's also very sort of like safe places to put your money, things like stable backed assets as well. And that's really what Make DeFi Better is all about. It's a combination of community and finance, and to be a sustainable project that, regardless of all of the predictions of the end of the world over the next few months, MDB will still be here. I can assure you of that.
All right, Apex, you want to give us a small recap of yourself?
Sure. So Apex Alpha, head of the Millionaires Club. The Millionaires Club is essentially a place that rewards loyalty. So it's not a sunken cost. You have to purchase a specific amount of MDB tokens and hold that value. As long as you're holding that value, then you will remain in the club. The club itself gives lots of really good benefits. So kind of a lot of it, we do project pitches. So projects will kind of be vetted, have to pass a certain level of standards in terms of what they offer as a project to the community. And then we will give, as part of that pitch, normally some form of giveaway. That can be whitelists, it can be actual tokens, it can be NFTs, it can be anything really what the project wants to give to the Millionaire Club members. We also do things like we have a life coach, and that life coach deals a lot with burnout and stress, specifically in the kind of arena we find ourselves in, specifically with kind of challenges of trade and stuff like that. So that's a really cool kind of concept where it's sometimes it's one-on-one. She drops lots of really cool tips into like a specific channel to kind of help people out. People can just reach out anytime and ask her questions. And she also does a kind of a session once a month where she'll pick a specific topic and kind of go through that, all to deal with kind of stress management. We also do things like giveaways. So I think we do normally at minimum 2 times $1,000 worth of MDB giveaways to the millionaire community. We do lots of other good things as well. Sometimes the most recent alpha is always dropped in the Millionaire Club channel. We also have our VIP section, which is more of a flex role, but also has some added benefits of a better possibility at winning some things like the whitelists and things like that. So I think that's it. I don't think I've missed anything off. But ultimately, it's, as I say, it's about reward and loyalty. So, those kind of members who we've put into the MDB ecosystem and, are here for the long term. So that's pretty much it, I think.
All right. Yeah. Well, for anybody in here who's coming from MDB, again, my name is Meta, community manager over at Gray Market. We are a VC investment group focused on pretty much every aspect of the digital space. Crypto, NFTs, TradeFi, basically anything you can think of, we are probably got our hands in it. If you want to learn more about us, you can, ask questions. I'll be I'll be happy to answer anything you guys got on us. If it would be okay with you guys, we would love to do a follow-up with you sometime down the line. Possibly when you guys have, started your, or rather released the aspects of Xenia. Just, see how you guys are doing with that. After we get this video up, etc., etc. So if you guys want to do something like that, we'd love to have you guys back. But aside from that, I think that is just about it. So Godfather, Apex, thank you guys for being such lovely guests. Mina, good to see you too in the audience. Yeah, that's about it. So unless there's anything else, I hope you guys have a fantastic Father's Day. And hopefully we can talk to you guys soon.
You too. Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody.
Good stuff.
See you guys.